Okay, so today we will be discussing the historical events of the French Revolution, and this will be done through the area of knowledge of history.
And through the way of knowing of memory, because we need memory to understand history, and sense perception, because the way we know history nowadays and historical events nowadays have been influenced by the perception.
So this presentation will be done firstly by a description of the event and of the revolution, the different outcomes that came after the events, how these outcomes still used today, what can we conclude from these outcomes, and then this will lead us to a knowledge question which we'll try to answer by looking at other real life situations and just answering the end.
So firstly, I'm going to talk about the French Revolution, and I'm going to try to do this in quite a bit of detail so that you fully understand the rest of the presentation. So the French Revolution basically started in 1780. France was ruled by a monarchy and by a king, Louis XVI, and basically the taxes were imposed on the working class. So there were three classes: the working class, the nobles, and the clergy. And we can say that metaphorically, the clergy and the nobles were riding on the working classes' back. Now, it's important. So, because the taxes were on the working class, people started becoming quite angry and started doing riots. But it's also important to note that in that time, it was the age of enlightenment. So people were starting to question who God was, and if the king was actually the king because God wanted him to be the king. So basically these two things combined made that the people became quite angry and started rioting. So the king soon saw that and decided to reunite the Estates General, so the first estate, the clergy, the second estate, the nobility, and the third estate, the common people, so of course the working class. And in this meeting, so here we can see that the third estate is much greater than the first and the second estate, and they couldn't agree on whether to vote per estate or per person. If they had voted per person, the third estate would have won. And this basically caused the two estates and the third estate to have an argument, and the third estate was sort of banned from their meetings. So the third estate decided to meet in a room called, which was made for the Jeu de Paume, and started to swear to each other that they will not separate until a new constitution was made. Now, you've probably already heard about La Prise de la Bastille. That was basically the only thing that I remembered about the French Revolution before I had gone into deeper research. And I understood that the Prise de la Bastille was mostly done because the personal advisor of the king had published an article about the economy of France at that time, which was really, really bad. And the people from Paris started rioting along with some other guards, French guards, and that's when they did the Prise de la Bastille to take some arms and deliver some prisoners. Now, the French Revolution ended when Louis XVI was executed, but it's argued that it could have been ended when Napoleon came to power. So here are the things to remember about the French Revolution and that we all remember. First of all, there was the Déclaration des droits humains et du citoyen. Then also there was the French flag that was created, and the French devise, which is Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. And something that's important to note is that also 40,000 people died during the French Revolution.
Okay, so what were the main outcomes of this event? So firstly, there was equality for all inside the country. So it didn't really matter which social class you were from, you had the same rights basically. And then the government and the church were now separate, which was a first in France and in many other countries as well. There was also the Déclaration des droits de l'homme, which is human rights, and that was the first as well in any country certainly for Europe. And also the idea of democracy spread through to other countries who followed the same example. So democracy as in the whole country basically votes on who is their leader, and it's not decided away from them. So how are these outcomes still used today? So they're basically still used as an example. So for example, different countries want their independence but don't really know how to go about it, and then what reasons they have to do this. And the French Revolution is basically an example where the majority of the population, so the poorer people, can overcome the rich and the more important social class to basically regain control over the country. And then it's basically a beginning of something that needs to be developed, and it's the base of foundation of modern society, so with democracy, equality, rights and freedom.
Now, to conclude this whole part of it, the French Revolution had three main influences on the current world, which are, first of all, democracy, and I'm saying democracy instead of freedom because democracy allows freedom to happen. Second of all, reduced inequality. Even though inequality is still present in the current world, it's been reduced. And we can sort of see also that in France, it tends to go the other way around. So, I mean, even though there is a difference in social classes and in income, the taxes, for example, are now higher on the noble class at the time than on the working class. And of course, human rights, as Victor already stated. Now, this leads to the following research question, which is, how does our knowledge of history help shape the world of today?
So before we actually answer that question, we're going to look at different real life examples. So the first one is earthquake proof. So in the past there have been many different earthquakes in different countries all across the world, and they've caused many casualties and a lot of damage. And this knowledge about earthquakes, about what they're capable of, has helped us understand how to minimize this damage and this amount of casualties. So for example, in Japan and San Francisco, buildings are being built so that they can withstand these earthquakes and reduce the damage number of casualties. So here the knowledge of the history of earthquakes has helped us basically shape different buildings so that this doesn't happen again. And then also the knowledge about terrorism and attacks. So for example, on the 30th of November in Paris there was a terrorist attack that killed around about 150 people, and this knowledge of the events has led to a lot of outcomes on terrorism, which have had an aim to ensure that that doesn't happen again. And however, we can't really control this, as it's a human factor, but we can try and minimize it.
So to conclude this whole presentation and to answer our knowledge question, which was, how does our knowledge of history help shape the world of today? Well, first of all, it's a difficult question to answer because we're sort of forced to also think about the question, what would the world be like if this or this hadn't happened? But we can try and answer it by looking at the two different aspects. So our knowledge of history has does shape the world of today, and we took the example of the French Revolution, we took the two other examples, and we saw that it helps us prevent negative consequences and helps us create what is best for society. But also, through the example of the 13th of November attacks in Paris, we saw that it doesn't really help shape the world of today and prevent negative consequences, and that was proven last Tuesday because of the attacks in Belgium. But as Victor said, that's something that we can't really control because it's a human factor. Thank you for it.
Basically.
Thank you.
Thank you.